One of the most practical uses of AI for educators is lesson planning. For many of you, planning is not difficult because you do not know the content. It is difficult because it takes time to translate standards into activities, sequence the lesson, find or adapt materials, build differentiation, and fit it all into the time available. This is one area where AI can be helpful, not as a replacement for planning and not as a substitute for professional judgment, but as a way to create a usable first draft that you can shape more quickly. A simple starting point is this: give AI the standard, the grade level, the time available, and a few constraints you already know matter in your classroom. For example, write a 45-minute lesson plan on the water cycle for 7th graders. Standard: NG SS MS-ESS 2-4. Students have basic prior knowledge of states of matter. Include a hook, direct instruction, a hands-on activity, and an exit ticket. Differentiate for below-level readers. That is enough to generate a structured draft in seconds. From there, your role becomes more strategic. You review the sequence. You decide what fits your students. You remove what feels generic. You add examples your students will actually connect with. You adjust pacing based on your class, your routines, your materials, and your instincts. That is an important mindset. AI can help you start faster, but the quality still comes from your decisions. For some teachers, this may save significant time. For others, the real value is not speed alone, but the ability to generate options. You might ask for 3 different hooks, 2 versions of the hands-on activity, a more rigorous exit ticket, or a simpler explanation for students who need more support. That makes AI less like an autopilot and more like a planning partner that can draft, brainstorm, and iterate on demand. A useful workflow might look like this. First, give AI the standard, grade level, and lesson length. Then, ask it for a first draft. Next, revise that draft by adding classroom-specific constraints, reading levels, language supports, behavior considerations, materials available, or known student misconceptions. Then, edit it yourself so it sounds and feels like you're teaching. Finally, use AI one more time for supporting pieces, discussion questions, an exit ticket, vocabulary supports, or a parent summary. That is often where the biggest gain happens, not in letting AI plan the whole lesson, but in using it to handle the repetitive drafting work around a lesson you already understand. Another area where AI can be genuinely useful is differentiation. You already know that students need different entry points, different supports, and different levels of challenge. The issue is rarely awareness. The issue is time. It is hard to create multiple versions of the same material when you are already moving from one responsibility to the next. AI can help by turning one solid lesson into several adjusted versions more quickly. For example, take this lesson on the Civil War and create 3 versions. One for students reading below grade level, one at grade level, and one for advanced learners. That alone can give you a starting set of materials to refine. You can take it further by asking for specific supports. Simpler vocabulary, shorter directions, sentence stems, guided notes, enrichment questions, extension tasks, small group reteach prompts. This can also be useful for multilingual learners. You might ask for a version with simplified language, embedded academic vocabulary support, or extra comprehension checks without lowering the intellectual demand of the content. Assessment design is another strong use case. Many multiple choice questions are only partly useful because the wrong answers are random or weak. But if the wrong answers are based on real misconceptions, the question becomes much more diagnostic. For example, generate 5 multiple choice questions on the water cycle where the wrong answers reflect common student misconceptions. For each wrong answer, explain what misunderstanding it represents. That gives you something much more useful than a quiz score alone. It gives you insight into how students are thinking. You can also use AI to generate short answer questions at different levels of rigor, create reteach questions based on likely mistakes, produce sample student responses for calibration, build quick checks for understanding, convert one assessment into several formats. Again, the value is not that AI knows your students better than you do. It does not. The value is that it can produce workable drafts and variations quickly. So your time goes into choosing, refining, and responding, rather than building every version from scratch.